that you found our hall, because it's hidden, we start our lecture of Fahim Kawsar. This lecture will be in English. That's why I will introduce Fahim Kawsar first.
My name is Alexey Gusev. I represent Russian venture company, and I will be your moderator for today's session. Let me introduce Fahim Kawsar. Fahim works at Bell Labs, which is one of the leading corporate research institutions. Nokia Bell Labs, yes, a very important notice. Now it's Nokia Bell Labs, which is one of the leading research institutions in the world, corporate R&D centers. And Fahim leads research activity in the area of IoT, Internet of Things, which, as you know, could become one of what we call next big things, and will definitely significantly improve urban life, both for citizens and for municipal governments. As far as I know, the talk will not only be about Internet of Things as technology. So there will be some words about sensors, devices, and services and protocols, right? But the main focus will be on social implications and on user experience. So how Internet of Things could be used by us, and what we should so what should be our attitude and consequences for our everyday life. And without further ado, let me give the floor to Fahim.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Alexei. Can you hear me, or do I need to? Thank you. Right. So, I think the forum today has been talking a lot about your urban life, the future urban life that you envision to live in. I'm going to take you to the different spectrum. I'm going to talk about your life, not your life in the city, but your life only. So, there has been a tremendous momentum in the industry lately because of the Internet of Things. The rise of machines that we are seeing today will have profound impact on the way we live, act, behave as social human being. And there has been tremendous activities going on around the world to make ourselves better in many forms because of this technology landscape changes. So today I'm going to talk some of those changes that you can experience in your coming life, hopefully, in your lifetime, right? But before I do that, I want to start with a couple of questions, right? So my first question is that today if I ask you what is Internet, what Internet means to you, what you're going to answer? I think majority of you will answer that Internet to me is the Google, Facebook, the Twitter, the LinkedIn, the YouTube, right? If today I take your Google from your life or one of the search engines from your life, think about how you're going to feel. You're not answering the question I asked, what is Internet, by bits and bytes. You're not talking about the Ethernets or the Wi-Fi or so on. You're talking about an experience that the technology has enabled you to live every day. Same way, can I think this rise of machines, that everything is going to be connected, that vision that we are talking about, when you live in that world, what kind of experience you will have, what kind of Google you will have in 10 years' time when everything else is connected that is around you, surrounding you. My next question is regarding the form factor or regarding the devices. So historically speaking, we have seen a nice evolution of computers over the past 30 years. In 1980s, we used to have personal computer that has a one-to-one relationship with us. And then we moved to more personal experiences through notebooks, iPads, mobile phones. And today, we are in an era where we're wearing all these little watches or glasses in our bodies to give us the computing experiences. Now, I have a natural question to ask. If everything else is connected and the devices are becoming so small, what kind of personal device you will have in the future? Think about it. I always say, and people try to despise me, that mobile phone is going to disappear in 5 years' time. Not because personal communication will go away, simply because you will have multitude of opportunities around you to offer you that communication experience. So I tried to put forward a couple of sort of like a foundation for this presentation. One thing was that what would be the experience you're going to have when you will have everything connected world, and then in that connected world you will not carry any more personal devices, but the environment will act on your behalf to provide you the personal experiences. Alright, so there is two fundamental premise of this talk. So now, let's talk about experience. So, it's quite funny that when we talk about Internet of Things today, if you search in Google, there will probably 1 billion answers will show you what is Internet of Things. If you go to Kickstarter or some sort of like a crowdsourcing project, you will see that there are tons of projects that are trying to do Internet of Things. Well, unfortunately, most of these projects are not so useful. They are fun, maybe, like a quite, cool to have, but simply not so useful. And I give an example here. This is actually not a real product. This is from one of those websites that called Internet of Useless Things. But it's like that. You need a blind just to, that tells you how bright it is outside, which you can see from your human sense. You don't need a blind to tell you that. Another example is this little egg monitor that tells you how good is your egg, The thing is that you really do not need this kind of tiny devices for your life. They don't really solve any real problem you have in your life. And this is where we are right now stuck in the industry, because we have tons of Internet of Things companies, startups, and like university projects that are creating this sort of prototypes, creating this sort of application, creating these sort of devices that do not solve a real problem. And because of that, they disappear. They create a product, they say there will be launch. Well, in 6 months' time, they are not there anymore. But let me show you a few of those actually survived. And you will understand why they survived. One of the most successful Internet of Things consumer experience device is this Nest. This is a learning thermostat that enters your home with a promise to cut your energy cost by half. And it does it very well. Within 8 weeks' time, Nest will reduce your energy cost by half. How does it do that? It just tries to understand and monitor your behavior in your home to make sure you have the most comfortable climate in your home. And it does it automatically. You do not need to do anything. And those of you who are here try to ever program or ever configure a thermostat in your home, you know how hard that is, how difficult that is. So what this tiny device did was just simplifying that problem, which actually helps us, and most importantly, it saves money for you, which is important. Another example that I like a lot, not because it is from Disney, simply because it addresses an important problem. So this is a little badge. If you go to one of those Disney warehouses, Disneyland, they will give it to you. And then it does three things. It automatically authenticates you. Then it localizes you. So for example, if you go to a Disney restaurant, you order something, the waiter will know where to find you. And at the same time, you can do your payment with this. So with one single device, wearing in your hand, you can do multiple things in a useful way. Because if you've been to one of those Disney parks, you know it consumes lots of time and effort for you. Essentially, this is doing nothing but simply allowing you to create time for you, which is very important, because that is the most important, or let's say, scarce resources we have. The another example I have is this tiny little camera that you can wear in your body. It might seem a privacy invasive device, but think about it. What if a blind people keep wearing this thing and that individual actually gets an eye? Because the camera can tell what you are seeing in front of you and can actually interpret it in your ear. So basically a blind person will be able to experience the world like we all do. Same way, it could help the people who have memory problems. It could understand the person you're talking to and can tell that whom you're talking to. So people with Alzheimer, the elderly people, they will be able to experience the world in a new way. All right? So these are very practical problems that we face in our everyday. Maybe not you, but someone in your neighborhood is blind. Someone in your neighborhood is having memory problems, so it will help them to achieve those things. We are living in this world where we try to measure everything. I don't know how many of you are wearing an activity tracker, the Fitbits, the Jawbones, the Apple Watches. These are basically designed to make you feel better by capturing your vital signs, health statistics, and so on, so that you're actually better aware of your physique and you can take more informed decision of how you want to live your life. There is a still long way to go, simply because the technology quality is not yet medical grade. So if we use an activity tracker, you know, they are still very, let's say, not so powerful in capturing those signs, but we are getting there. But this is a useful area because you all want to live a healthy life. So if I can help you with technology to make you live a healthy life, you know, you will be happy. And this word happy is very important. Can you think of technology that can make you feel happier? Sometimes we don't even know that how stressed we are because of our work, because of our traveling, our relationships, money problems, all these different things. How can technology can assist us to basically make people feel happier with the technology? These are fundamental questions that we should ask when you design technology for human. Another example, people like me who lives far from our parents and so on, we are always worried about our parents, families. Think about how we could actually enable people to know about their remote families, to remote awareness. Think about a little camera that could be in your home, far from you, that can understand what is happening in your home. You don't need to know precisely what they're doing, but just knowing that your parents are fine is important to you. I don't know how many of you live without your family for many years or, you know, for long. At midnight you wake up, you just not feel good. And you just can't call because it's, you know, dark night there. So maybe if a technology can tell you that they're absolutely fine, they're doing all right, makes you feel sane. Again, these are technology that are very personal experienced. Kids, a lot of kids today suffer from autism. And the medical science suggests you that the earlier you can detect those signs, the better for your treatment. How can you capture that? How can you find that your kids is actually having autistic signs? Think about it, if a technology could capture those interactions. How many interactions he or she is having in the school, in the kindergarten, and comparing it with other kids, and whether that is actually not so, you know, correct. And if could technology help you to basically provide you that hints, hey, you need to actually pay more attention to your kid because he or she is not, regular, not behaving normally, right? When Google was not in our life, it was very difficult to find information. Think about how many of you here, I don't know, in 1990s tried to book a travel to a different part of the world. How hard it was to gather information and to create decisions, to make decisions. So think about when everything is connected in this world, finding things, knowing things status would be a quite important thing to do in your life. Think about just the impact Google had in your life and think about everything else is connected, what will happen in that world. So search is a very important application that might enable a lot of other applications in our life that we need to think about. So all these experiences that I'm trying to tell you is basically about providing you information that is useful. And here is another example. This was a mirror that tells you when you are doing something, you're just fixing your hair or like you're brushing your teeth, it just tells you how is your schedule or how your day is going to be, something like that, so that you can make a more informed decisions. Again, the reason being, we are very busy these days. Time is a very critical component. The better and the quicker information you have for more information making, you will have better way to deal with things. So, I provided you a bunch of experiences. All these experiences basically is doing one thing, providing you the right information at the right time to make the right decision. And in the process of that, enabling you to save time, to create time for you. This is very important, right? Because if you really look back, or if you really try to look at yourself, try to understand or try to, let's say, sort of like investigate your own life for last 24 hours, you will see what I mean here. That how much time you spend on making decisions because you didn't have the right information in front of you. Just an exercise that you can go back and try. So, if we want to enable all these things, what we really need is that we need a technology that can sense you, understand you, and the world around you. If they can do that, then all these different experiences that I was talking about would be possible. So, let me start with sensing the world around you. This really means that you need to have a lot of sensors in the environment, right? Now, we all know that smart home, everybody, here, I don't know in Moscow how many conferences you have every year on smart home, but if you look into the planet scale, I don't know, maybe there are like 200 conferences every year on smart home. The funny thing is, none of you here live in a smart home. I don't live in a smart home either. Why not? It's been 30, 40 years. The first smart home that was shown in the world was 1980 by Ken Sakamura from University of Tokyo. Today is 2016. After 36 years, we don't have a smart home. We don't live in a smart home. The problem is, it's not the technology. The problem is the money, the cost of deployment, management, and extension. You live in your home. You're not going to change it tomorrow completely. And the technology is not there yet to introduce these technologies in a piecemeal fashion, right? So the fundamental problem of sensing the world around you requires sensors, and we just don't have those sensors. And that is why you see all those little egg meters trying to monitor your egg, because they can't do anything better, because you don't have the sensors around you. Now, if you think there is one infrastructure that is around us, and that is the radio infrastructure, your mobile phone infrastructure, your mobile network, your Wi-Fi network. Think about it. Today, doesn't matter which part of Russia you are, which part of Europe you are, which part of Earth you are connected, either via your mobile network or via your Wi-Fi network. Now, these networks or this infrastructure was designed as a communication infrastructure. They are supposed to carry your voice and your data from one point to other point, right? But if we actually start using this infrastructure as a sensor infrastructure so that they can actually not only carry your voice, your data, but also carry your senses, then you have instantaneously a sensor network that is covering the entire scale, entire planet. All right? And that is amazing. Because remember the thing I was just telling you a couple of minutes ago, that it's been 36 years and none of us live in a smart home. But everybody in our home today has Wi-Fi network. I cannot believe that anybody sitting here don't have a Wi-Fi in their home. So if you can start using Wi-Fi as a sensing infrastructure, you can immediately get that sensing around you part. But of course, it's not so easy. It's not so easy to gather a lot of information out of Wi-Fi network. But that's where people like me comes in, or company like Bell Labs comes in, where we try to show you that actually you can. You don't need a camera. You just need your network, and I can tell you pretty much everything that a camera can. Right? And here are some examples I want to point out. So if I know your Wi-Fi network, I can precisely tell you your location. I can tell you where you are. And if I know where you are, I can also do a first derivation that how you are moving from one point to other point. From that, I can actually detect whether you are walking, whether you are sitting, whether you are sleeping or not. If I just know your location. And then I do your movement tracking and I can find out what activities you are doing. I can figure out even very subjective aspect like happiness. Remember I told you that technology should help you to make you happier? We can detect happiness, whether you are stressed, by just looking into your network signals. Right? Again, these are maybe more technical terms I don't want to use because of the, like the overview I'm giving. But if you are interested to know how the hell I'm actually capturing happiness from Wi-Fi signals, I would be happy to talk to you more. So we build a few experiences out of that. For example, remember the search engine I talked about? We build a search engine purely based on location data for your connected objects. We build this quantified enterprise applications, which is basically physical LinkedIn that captures interaction, face-to-face interaction, your happiness and so on. So this is an example of that think about even like this. You are meeting many people, like today there is no way you can figure out who is meeting whom unless you exchange the cards. But technology like this could actually help you to find out your trajectories of your interaction points. Again, because your location, your interactions, your movement and so on. And as I was saying, that we could actually even detect happiness. So this is from my lab where we try to understand how people are feeling today, or the lab is feeling today, by simply looking into their location trajectories and then applying multiple algorithms and techniques. So here is an example that which part of the lab is feeling how, right? And these are very important metrics. You know why I tell you? I will spend some time here. So I have a large team. If my team is not feeling good, and if I am not acting, I'm not doing my job right. Right? But if I'm not aware that my team is not feeling well, or I have no problem in the team, I cannot blame myself because I was not aware of it. So I think the fundamental step of making any intentional changes or to make our life better is to first know that there is a problem exists in our life, or there is a problem, there is something wrong in the physical life. And I think this kind of subtle technology that basically makes people aware of the surroundings, the world around you, can help them to make more informed and better decisions. So here is another example where we again use this network as a primary key sensing modalities to create a quantified enterprise where we try to understand different aspects, where people are, which buildings they are in, which spaces they are in. This is actually quite related to, like this forum, the urban forum here, but not necessarily for outdoor environment, for indoor environment. If you have like a large venue like this here, you want to understand a lot of aspects, where people are, how people are moving, and so on and so on, you can make those understanding also from this kind of technologies. Now, we did a study of this particular type of behavioral modeling or understanding human aspect last year in Web Summit. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Web Summit. It's one of the largest technical conferences in the planet, which captures 40,000 people every year. In Dublin, next year they're going to move to Madrid, Barcelona, I believe. But we try to model the behavioral traces just the way I was explaining, that whom people interact and how they feel and so on and so on. And the results are quite all right. So what I tried to show you or tried to explain to you in the last 5-6 minutes is that to create a human experience, understanding the world around you is very important. But to understand the world around you, you need a sensory infrastructure that doesn't exist today at a large scale, at a planet scale. So I tried to tell you that, hey, wait a second, there is one infrastructure that is everywhere, which is the Wi-Fi network or the radio network. Why don't you use the radio network or Wi-Fi network as a key sensor infrastructure? And if you do that, then you can actually solve the problem that I was trying to hint will create a lot of impact, right? The sensing the world around you. Now, the second aspect is the sensing you, how you are doing, you know. Now, as I was telling you that today there are plenty of wearables that we have in our life. I'm wearing one, but unfortunately these wearables are quite bad. Why it's bad? Because they're good as a timepiece, they're very good in giving me time, but the rest of the thing that it tries to do, to understand the physiological things, that how you're feeling or what is your vital signs are, whether you are stressed or not, these kind of things they are not so good at. Why? Because that's a technical problem. That's a technical problem because these devices have very small memory, they have a very small processing capability, so they cannot run complex things, they cannot do hard things, right? Now, one of the things that my lab or my team is doing is to address this problem. We are saying that can we actually make these hardwares better? Can we actually make this hardware so good that they can actually become a medical grade device? When you go to hospital, you have a blindfolded trust that the doctor, the machines they are using are good, right? So what if you have the same quality of devices on your hand? So that's the challenge that we are trying to address. And there is some side benefits of it. So today, all these kind of devices, they try to understand you and so on by transporting all your data to the cloud. So I don't know how many of you have used Siri, is the personal assistant of Apple. But you know that Siri actually offloads all your data to the cloud. So whatever you're saying, it's going to the Apple server, right? And that's a problem because I don't want Apple to know everything. So if I can do everything locally on my device, on my hardware, then I actually have a lot more benefits. Again, going to the root of the problem that I want to sense me, I want to understand me, and for that I need a hardware on my hand or on my body somewhere, and I want to make that hardware really, really good. The quality should be medical grade quality so that they can really perform well. But to do that, I need to solve these problems. I need to make sure that their performances are very high quality. They make the data private, so they don't release all the data to cloud. And also the last thing is that I need to make sure that their battery is, last longer. So to do that, we build a technology, we call it deepx, which is basically, again a technical term, I will not want to go deep in that. Basically taking large scale deep learning techniques, squeeze them into small hardwares with some optimization technique. And that gives you a massive gain in terms of the accuracy. You can gain really like a 30-40x time accuracy and really making that medical grade quality more possible, which is not there right yet. All right. So what I tried by this last bit is that today we have many devices around us, but they are not so good in protecting your privacy and doing the right kind of classification and so on. And this is very important because they all enable you to sense yourself better. And here are some examples. And I try to tell you that we need to have a new kind of technology, something that we are also working on right now, that will address these primary pain points and hopefully will technology better to understand you. So this is the last slide I have. So I strongly believe the future of this connected world means this, that it will have the capability to understand, access and control everything. But for that, we have still a lot of problems to solve, a lot of challenges to address. And I think the forum like this, worldwide, a lot of people are working on these things, but we need to work on the right problems. And I tried to show you today some of the experiences that could enable to address the hard problems, not the low-hanging fruits, but the tough problems that can really make big impact and create game-changing experiences and transformative experiences in our life. Thank you very much.
Okay, so now it's time to questions, and there are not so many of us, but that means that our conversation, our Q&A session could become even more interactive. So please don't hesitate. Yes, one question, two questions. Please.
Well, you mentioned that, thank you for your lecture, and of course there are a lot of advantages of Internet of Things, but of course you mentioned that it's against our privacy, might be. So, well, what do you think if all our devices will connect to the net and it will be easy to hack and to cheat all our data and to use it in a bad way? And the other question is, in some years maybe we might use the Internet of Things everywhere, so just people will get used to it. And if they will do not access to the Internet, they will just do not know what to do in the simple situation. Like, for example, you see, well, if we had a difficult question nowadays, we do not try to think about it. We just do one move and we say, okay, Google, and find the right answer in 2 seconds. But it's a problem for our mind, for our brain.
Okay, you prefer this one? Okay, no problem.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that was there.
No problem.
Right. Okay. I think both are very, very good questions. So the first question, what you asked, is about privacy and the security. You are spot on that right now the technology is looked at primarily from the access as well as processing perspective, not much from the security perspective. And a lot of research needs to be done to make sure that how our data can be protected and can be safe from hackers and so on. And actually today later we have a panel where I just wanted to highlight exactly the same point, that when you talk about smart cities and smart citizens and so on, we don't talk about security much. So this is a very valid question. However, I think there are research going on, and sort of like, for example, the last work I was trying to show today, that how you could use deep learning kind of techniques completely locally to do all the computation. What it means that your data never remain your home or never remain your hand. Whatever you're doing is always there. So those are sort of like techniques that we can apply to make our life a bit more private, our data more private. But then again, your question is valid that the security protocols or the security techniques are still not matured enough that can scale the Internet of Things visions. Your second question is a more philosophical one, because what you're asking is, by having this technology in our life, we are losing credibility as an intellectual human being. because we are too much dependent on the technology. You're right. But I think there is a different way of looking at it. I think technology will never overrule, or technology will never take over your life, but it can always make you better, right? And I think you mentioned Google. Indeed, it is correct that Google is becoming sort of like a dependency for us today, but at the same time, Google makes you better. Google gives you access to the information that you never had before. Maybe in a country like Russia, it's a modern country, it's a developed country, you don't feel the need of education. You don't feel the need of accessibility. But if you go back to the poorer part of the world, like for example, you go to Africa or if you go to South Asia, 50 years ago, people had no access to high quality education, high quality teaching, or anything, in a way. But today, you give them a laptop and an internet connection, and if they have the will, they can become the next Einstein, So what I'm trying to tell you here is that technology is not always will control our life, but it can always make us better. We just have to make sure that how we design our technology. I agree with you that, for example, the dependency these days the teenagers have on Facebook or other social media or chatting softwares are kind of like scary. But I blame technology designers as well as technology educators for that, because we need to have the right curriculum in the schools and the education system so that they can take more informed like a way of informing this next generation, so that they don't really feel that, without Google, without Facebook, without WhatsApp, without WeChat, we have no life. No. I don't know, but it's a philosophical question, so.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Hi, thank you for your lecture. I have a question about artificial intelligence. What do you think about dangers of artificial intelligence? Because I think that if all information is in devices and in internet, so it's very dangerous that sometime machines will be smarter than us. And Nick Bostrom, he has an optimistic view on this, and there is a lot of scientists like Stephen Hawking or Elon Musk, and they think about this is very, very dangerous for mankind. Thank you very much.
Again, I think this is similar question to one of our friends here. Yeah. I think it's again a philosophical question. I think you are right. There is a lot of concern about artificial intelligence, the robotics in general, that they will take over humankind. But I don't want to be so pessimistic about it. I think technology has a lot of bright impact in our life. Today we are here, we can talk, we can communicate, we can, we are in this particular forum because technology made us, come here. So I want to be very optimistic and looking at that how we should design the right framework and the ecosystem around the technology so that it doesn't become our enemy. And I don't believe, to be honest, if you have worked on artificial intelligence, and if you really look at where we are now, at this very moment, 2016, 30th of June, where we are now in terms of technology capabilities, the vision that Stephen Hawking or Elon Musk or some others are putting forward, that's like 200 years later, I mean, I'm not kidding. I mean, seriously, if you look into where machine intelligence is today, I think we are really, really far ahead from the, this utopian vision that some of our visionary folks are having. So I think conversation need to be continued, and we need to make sure that we create the right ecosystem and the right discipline around the technology so that it never goes beyond our hand.
Кстати, вопросы можно задавать по-русски.
You can also ask questions in Russian because we have also simultaneous translation.
Okay. So please use this.
Oh, I will tell in English. So
Great.
I want to ask about like our devices. Sometimes they have like, I don't know how to say, like physics. It's in physics area. Waves that like it's not good for our health. So if we always use like a watch, iWatch, and so on, I think it's not good for our health. So what do you think about this way?
Yes, I mean, of course, like you are surrounded by radio waves.
Yeah.
So if you capture this here in this area, there are, millions of cells around you. So I don't know that the computation that is right now going on around the environment will actually make things worse than what we already have. To be very fair with you, I may not be the right person to give you the right answer here, that what are the health risks of having technology around us all the time. But my understanding, whatever little understanding, as again, I'm not an expert in that subject matter, so I should not say something in a public forum. But my understanding is that that there are experts looking into these things, and if there is something very risky or something very serious, we should be well informed so that we can make the right decision.
Okay, any more questions? If I may, okay? So you noticed in the beginning of your talk that you will speak about user experience and not about the city experience. But my question is about this connection between citizens and the city, and how Internet of Things could impact on urban life. And my question is as follows. So do you think that such technology breakthroughs like Internet of Things could lead us to absolutely new urban paradigm, which is decentralized government? So when city is not administered by some governmental body, but when it is an ecosystem of citizens, and they have access to all the data about the city and about themselves, and it helps them to work as a whole ecosystem. So it's like blockchain technology, when everything is decentralized and there is no center.
Okay, I think this is a fantastic question.
So you mean that it's fantastic? So that's not realistic?
No, I think this is realistic in a sense, because I will give you a couple of examples. So, not in the developed world, when you look into like Europe or North America, maybe it's not the case, but when you look into the poorer part of the world, there is something phenomenal going on. That phenomena is that because the governments are there, I don't want to say in a public forum, but let's say the governments are not so active in those parts of the world. So what you see is that a lot of grassroots activities. So people who are at the bottom of the civic societies make communities and do things and make innovation. And in the process of that, the government loses sort of like the central authority. And I give you example of banking in India or banking in Africa. So for example, in Africa, that people do not have a home address. So their mobile phone is their home address, and they're using their mobile phone, they actually do the money transaction and so on. So this kind of innovation, or for example, how the farmers communicate with each other for sharing information, right? So all these different activities that are happening in I can bring many other examples. You will see that a lot of grassroots activities are going on, and it is becoming like more from the bottom up rather than the top down, where in this part of the world it's more about top down. that you take decision as a government authority and you try to diffuse it into the society, and because there is so many bottlenecks at so many different layers, it takes a lot of time. But when it comes from the bottom-up way, it's a very different story. And that is why I say that it's a fantastic question, because I strongly believe that it will become decentralized. Because once you give these technologies and you start opening up your data, you start opening up your platform, this will happen. And you are already seeing the impact of circular economy. You are seeing the shared economic, Uber, Airbnb, TaskRabbits. These technologies, and government doesn't know how to deal with them. They are, let's say, clueless, right? I mean, this is already happening now. I just came back from Singapore, where the CEO of Flipkart, which is the Indian Amazon, was talking about, and he was sharing exactly the same sort of, like a, how to say, like the feelings that in India is having, that people are taking more grassroots initiatives, ignoring the governments, and in the process of that, making the society better. So I fully agree that that's how it's going to be. The bureaucratic way of going top down may not be the right way to cater the, the influence this technology will have.
So we should wait for this, so not wait, we should observe this social innovation not from developed world, but from developing world, right?
Yes and no. I mean, I think, you see, the ecosystem is slightly different, and the cultural as well as the economical and political diversity puts different sort of framework, innovation framework in the developing world. Yeah. So that's why you see that in India, China, Brazil, the innovation that they are going on are slightly different than, let's say, in Europe and North America. But I don't think that we should wait or we should stop. I think it needs to go hand in hand, and we should share the best of the best together so that we have, like, impact in a global scale, at a global scale.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. More questions? Great.
Hello. Maybe maybe my question is also a little bit similar to before questions, but I want to ask you about this. Like, nowadays we know that transcontinental companies like Google.
Can you speak louder?
Like this?
Yes, yeah? Like this.
The transcontinental companies like Google, Microsoft, the capital of these companies is like sometimes bigger than some countries. So it's like capital of Google bigger than Slovakia GDP and like this. So if we continue to develop in this way, and then we have smart homes, and smart homes control our life, so maybe fantastic question that we will depend on Google more than depend on our government. So maybe like it will be open borders, and they will be country of Google and like this.
I think that many people on this forum would prefer to depend on Google than on our government, but this is not my public comment, so this is something, that shouldn't be public.
Again, this is a public forum, so we need to be careful what you say.
Yes.
But I think you are right. But I think it also has problems. Google and Apple, they are not saint either. And I also represent one company, large enough company, Nokia. The reason being is that, I mean, at the end of the day, it's I mean, as I said, this is again a philosophical question. At the end of the day, it's a matter of the right regulation and the right ecosystem, right? So today, data is money. Everybody says so, everybody thinks so, and it is correct that you can make substantial differences by owning the data and so on. So today Google knows everything about you, Apple knows everything about you, and you can see that these companies are actually want more. So before they were only taking care of your online life or your mobile life, but now these companies are coming into your home. So if you look into Google, if you look into Apple's recent products and so on, the same is true for a company like Amazon. They want to know more about your purchase behavior, but in your home behavior too. So I think it's a natural tendency that people this company realizes that they need to have more data and thing around it. But I think at the same time, these companies are also aware that they need to put the control back to the user hand. Because you can ditch Google today. I mean, it's not like that, you know, they just rule your life. Yes, you have strong dependency on them. But today, if you want to say, I'm not going to use Google anymore, I want to use Apple, or I don't want to use Apple, I want to use something else, you can. So I think that democracy in technology is still there. We are still not under one autocratic company that okay, you can't go anywhere, right? I mean, that's not the case. It's the case for many governments, but not for the technology companies yet. But you're right that we need to keep an eye on all the time towards that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think that we are out of questions and probably we are out of time. So thank you very much, Fahim, for your talk and thank you for your participation.